be speaking about the 2023 real estate market update. My name is Ellisa Greer. I'm the managing broker for Keller Williams Team Red out of the Peninsula office. But our team covers the entire Puget Sound, and we actually help serve clients all across the United States. So we've helped with transactions in Texas, Florida, the Midwest, the East Coast, throughout the U.S., and that just continues to grow for our team. And then we also have Karen Orr with Fairway, and her team also continues to serve our clients. We've been a great partner, and then as well throughout the United States.
Thanks, Ellisa.
Okay. So we're going to dive right into the numbers for the United States, and then Karen's going to talk a little bit about the finance pieces of that, and then we're going to get into our local market here in Washington State. No, that's one of our issues. IT's coming to fix the clicker. So the things that drive our real estate numbers are, of course, we always look at the price of home sales. So the number of home sales, the price of those sales, our market volume, and then inventory. So how many homes we have available to look at. Mortgage rates, which Karen's going to talk about more, and she's also going to talk about the treasury spread, and then of course affordability. So can people afford to buy? That affordability index. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today as well. So when we talk about annual home sales, the line that goes across is the home sales for 2022. And we see that we had a huge surge. We had a standard kind of 4% year-over-year increase coming up into that 2000 to 02, and then in 02 to 04, we had a huge bubble. Everybody knows we had that huge bubble that came and then crashed in 06. We had a big drop in home values starting in 06. And people felt that. We had a huge recession. People lost their homes. We had a massive amount of foreclosures. Then we had a recovery time starting 08, and then we kind of started building back up at a really normalized rate again. Buyers were able to purchase homes. Sellers again were able to negotiate. We had a normalized market coming back up. Then when we hit 2018 to 2019, coming into 2020, 2019 we started experiencing, they were predicting another recession right before we hit COVID. But then COVID happened, people started not being able to, their homes were working for them. Everybody was having to work from home, their kids were going to school at home, and then we had another boom in home sales because the people that could afford to move oftentimes needed to. So again, we see, so the line again that goes across is the home sales that we had in that 2022, because we know that number now. And this is seasonally adjusted. So what that means is we always have more home sales in June, July, kind of starting in the spring, more homes come on the market, more homes sell through the summer, and then we have fewer homes sell through the wintertime. That's just always how that goes. Nobody wants to put their home on the market when their Christmas tree's up and their presents are out. People don't want to be moving in the middle of the holidays. Yes. Oh, okay, sorry, I could speak up a little bit. Is that better? Okay, kind of, okay. So again, when we talk about annual appreciation, we had that healthy market. Again, in 90s to 2000, we have had a very healthy market of what we predict is 4% appreciation year over year. And we had that for a very long time. Then we overshot after the year of 2000. We had too much growth. We had that bubble that burst, and again we see that. So as people talk about, oh, we're going to have another bubble that burst. We hear that a lot. People are like, oh, we're going to have that bubble. We can see that we did not have those same conditions during that COVID. We're not in those same conditions we had in that 2001 to 2005 time period. And we did have a small period of growth, but it wasn't that extended large period of growth. We're not expecting, and we're going to also see why the pieces that made that happen were not mortgage backed. What we're seeing happen right now is population backed. So the line you're seeing here is the 4% growth rate. And so we've stayed, we had the bubble, we overshot that 4% growth rate. It dipped down below it when we had the crash. Then in 2001, when we had all those home sales with COVID happening, we overshot it again, but now we're starting to recorrect. And then 2023, we are predicted to be down at 382 in annual home prices, 382,000 in annual home prices. So as the median, and that's not, of course, that's not in our area. This is across the nation. Okay, 382,000 median home prices is not our area's median home prices. We, of course, understand that this is nationwide. Again, when we talk about monthly, I was speaking a little bit about how we have those home sales peaking in the winter, peaking in the summer, and then settling down in the holiday times. So we always say, what's the best time of year to buy the house? When the snow falls, right? When the holidays, when you're more busy with your family activities, everybody else is too. And so that's one of the best times to purchase a home. Again, I mean, some of these things they just reinforce each other. We see the same things happen. The same things happened in 05, 06. We had too much appreciation. We overshot that 4%. And then, in 2001, we overshot the 4%. 06, we had a depreciation. We all felt that. If you were a homeowner, you saw your home value go down. And many people lost their homes. And now we've had average appreciations of 6%, 6.37% from 2012 to 2019, and then they went up significantly between 2020 and 2022, which we've all seen in our tax values, if you're a homeowner now. So, as we saw in inventory, in monthly inventory, 2020 to 2021, 2023, 2022, I'm sorry, we've had less and less inventory. But then 2022, inventory started to come back up again towards the end of the year. And we are continuing to see more inventory on the market. However, we are still in a seller's market. It's just allowing for more balance and more opportunity for buyers. Oh, did you have a question? Okay. So what that means a little bit for buyers is that they're not having to compete with 50 offers. They're not having to have unsafe sales. They're allowed to have an inspection, not buy a house sight unseen, and then have a regretful purchase. Both buyer and seller are able to make an informed purchase now, which is good for both parties. And we can see here how mortgage rates have been impacting some of our sales. We had a big jump in a jump in mortgage rates, which shocked the market towards the end of last year, and people held off to see what was going to be happening, and now they've come back to more traditional purchasing. And you're going to see what historical mortgage rates look like in just a few minutes. Actually, right now. So in 2016, January of 2016, we were sitting about, just a high threes. It started peaking up. So, this has just been in the last, since 2016, we've been having very low interest rates. But if you've owned a home for a long time, you may remember having a 9 or a 10% interest rate. I remember being so excited to get a 7 and then a 6. Those are really normalized interest rates. And people also talk about what the Fed is doing, and really Karen's going to talk a lot more about this, but inflation has more to do with what interest rates are than what the Fed is doing. The Fed is disconnected from what interest rates are actually. If the Fed goes up, interest rates don't automatically go up. We also talk about affordability, because ultimately people look at what their bank balance is going to be. Can I afford that home? Oh, we finally got our stairs. So, when they're looking to buy a house, they're also looking at other factors, like what are gas prices? Can I afford, if I'm buying this house, can I afford to get to and from work? Am I going to be eating ramen on the floor in this home? That's never the advice we give our clients. We always look at what their whole life is going to be in a home. And of course, what they're paying in interest really affects that. If it's going to be, a 1% change in interest can change what their mortgage is going to be significantly. And as hourly wages have changed, that's also made a big impact on affordability especially in our area, as our hourly wages have gone up. And we see that across the nation. I don't know how many of you have always lived here, but I've lived in a state like Georgia, where minimum wage is $2 and is much, much lower if you're a tipped employee. It really does affect home values. So we like to see first-time home buyers be a minimum of 40% of the market. That's a healthy, balanced market. But right now, because home prices, that affordability index has gone down so much, right now we're sitting at about 26% of the market being first-time home buyers because of that affordability issue. And then this talks about how long a buyer stays in their home. So in 2006, most people were staying in their home about 4 to 5 years, and now people are staying in their home much longer. We're looking at 8 to 10 years for most people. They're staying in their homes longer. They're holding on to them longer. There are other people that stay in their homes for a very, very long time as well. And this shows the difference between their first home and their current home. So if they've owned a home before, it's like how long you stay in your starter home versus how long you stay in that second home that lasts you much longer.
Hello there. So I'm going to talk a little bit more today about what's going on in the marketplace with interest rates, what is happening with housing as well, as far as is there going to be a crash or not going to be a crash and why. And I'm going to go over some tools that buyers and sellers are currently using so that they can take advantage of the opportunity that exists in the marketplace right now. The opportunity, as I see it in the marketplace, is it still is a seller's market. Inventory has grown, and so buyers have a rare opportunity right now that they haven't had for several years. As Ellisa said, being able to negotiate, being able to buy right is what I want to call it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and if you guys have questions, just raise your hand. So as Ellisa she had a slide on this, but I'm going to show you guys what happened. This is January of 2018. The market was a normal market. Interest rates and inflation normally mirror each other. They channel each other, okay? We get down here to 2020. Prior to COVID hitting, there was a recession that was starting, and that is represented by this silo right there. But then COVID hit, and you know, a lot of people, like I said, think that the Fed controls interest rates. They really don't control mortgage interest rates. They control business interest rates, car loan interest rates, and credit card interest rates. But there is a tool they have to use, and they used it. In 2020, where this white line exists, and it says QE, quantitative easing, they started buying mortgages. And when they bought mortgages, then that dropped the interest rate to 3% essentially. And you can see inflation was nothing. They were terrified we were going to go into the negative, and they were trying to keep, you know, our economy afloat, utilizing housing in part. So you can see, starting in 2020, they started buying mortgages, and they didn't quit buying them until January 22. What happened to inflation though? In 2021, it started going up, and they ignored it. And so what happened was, when they finally decided they needed to act, interest rates shot up quite quickly. It was a shock to the marketplace, and you know, we're still reeling a little bit from that. So everybody knows that's happened. What's going to happen next, right? And so what we have up here is a lot of economist gobbledygook, okay? The expert that I have relied on heavily in this presentation is Barry Habib. He is a, you know, world-renowned economist. The Feds listen to him, Congress listens to him, and the presidents listen to him. So I do trust him. He was one of the few economists that predicted 2008 accurately. And what he's showing us here, this is his slide, and you can find him on YouTube if you want more. He's showing the core consumer price index. And that is an index that everybody uses to label inflation. And again, we've learned inflation is what drives mortgage rates, so we want to see inflation coming down. And on May 10th, we're going to get the report that comes out comparing last year to this year for April. And what they are expecting in the data is that we're going to see a pretty big drop in year-over-year inflation. And that will give everybody a sigh of relief in the mortgage markets. And we will see a drop in rates if in fact that happens. Now, the other key indicators, and I'm not going to go into a lot of it, the 10-year bond and interest rates always have a spread that is about 1.5 to 2. Currently, the spread is 3%. And what that really means is that interest rates really shouldn't be that high at this moment in time. And We believe that it will come back and match up as it has done historically, which would indicate about a point to a point and a half drop in rates that will be coming, maybe not this year, but next year. And so we will see. The other thing that people are really worried about is obviously housing, and everybody's talking about a recession. And what I love about the housing slide right there is you can see every one of those silos is a recession, and you can see though housing values as a rule go up after during a recession and right after. So I think that's just interesting data that most of us don't ever look at. So housing crash or no housing crash? As Ellisa said, the housing crash in 2008 was caused by bad mortgage lending. It was caused by an oversupply of inventory. Everybody was super greedy, and it created the Great Recession. Housing is not responsible for this recession, and what is happening now is that we have the household growth is the blue line, and you can see we have more households forming right now than we have inventory, which is the gold line. And so there's a big gap. It's trending at about 1.9 million houses that we need more of for the people who are coming in and wanting to have a new home. And who are those people generally? They are the 30-somethings. 30-somethings have been a little delayed in launching out of their parents' homes, in part due to COVID. But now they want out, and they want to start forming their own households. And it really strictly is it's just a population situation. And so for the next several years, we're going to have a lot of pressure on the current inventories, which will result in continued appreciation for the inventory that exists. So we're not going to see inventories drop or price or appreciation drop like many people were worried about. All right, so again, what is the opportunity, right? The opportunity is we are having a more balanced market right now. And I'm gonna show you here. This is what was happening in the past. Bid over ask. I would just see it over and over and over again as a mortgage lender. It was heartbreaking, honestly, to watch. Somebody would try to buy a $500,000 house, and yay, interest rates were 3.5. They would end up, in order to win the deal, sometimes having to bid $100,000 over ask in order to even get the house. They might have had to waive inspection, etc. And you can see that caused not only that they had to come in with more money, $100,000 compared to $120,000, the mortgage payment that they had to make was higher because they were now spending $600,000 for a $500,000 house. So the opportunity today is that you can buy a $500,000 house for $500,000, or close to it. And rates might be higher, but the spread between what the payment is and what it is now, because you don't have to bid over ask, is not as large as most people think. And there has been substantial wage growth that has occurred, and is in part, responsible for the inflation that we're seeing. So what I want to talk about briefly is strategies that work for both buyers and sellers, all right? So everybody started freaking out when their house didn't sell in a week, and maybe it was sitting on the market for a little bit. I think average is what, 2.9 months? Or no, how long? No, I've got that wrong. The average time on market. No, I mean, like, from if you list a house, how long does it take to sell it? 45 days? About 45 days. It's not 45 minutes, it's 45 days. And so what happens when somebody, their house is sitting a lot of times they're like, oh my gosh, we need to cut the price, we need to cut the price, we need to cut the price. Why are we cutting the price? We're cutting the price so that there's more buyers available for that piece of property, potentially. So here's a strategy that helps the buyers and the sellers. So you buy now a $490,000 house, interest rate 6.375, monthly payment $29.53. Now, there's a thing called a permanent buy down where you pay discount points. That's what it's generally called, where you are going to buy the interest rate lower. So in this example, buying the interest rate from 6.375 to 5.49 cost $7,738 the day I did this. Now, what did that do? That opened up the pool of buyers that can buy this house, or people who want to keep the payment in their budget, and the payment would be $27.31. If you were to try to match that with if you're a buyer who's getting ready to negotiate, like, hey, I really want a lower payment, two things most buyers only care about: down payment and what's my monthly payment, right? You would have to have $34,000 reduction in the purchase price to get the payment that you want. It's a much cheaper, if you're a seller, to offer to pay a permanent buy down. Another strategy here is a temporary buy down, and this is a little bit different. You actually go from 6.375. The first year you make your payment at 4.375, but you have a 30-year fixed rate loan at 6.375. And again, this is kind of like looking at, do I ask for a lower purchase price? Maybe not. Maybe you ask for the seller to pay for a temporary buy down. And you can see the monthly payment is being subsidized at about $776 a month on a temporary buy down the first year. Second year, the payment goes up 1% to 5.375, and it's being subsidized about 300 and some. And so that's another option for buyers today, and it's an option for sellers to offer as well, because a price reduction of $25,000 would get you for that a $4,600 payment. But you can see that can be much more attractive to a seller.
And Karen, can I just add that one of the things that I really like about this as an agent is it really saves the buyers more in the long run, month over month, when you add that up over maybe 5 years or whenever it is they're going to refinance, years down the road. That piece saves them a ton of money, and it makes the house more affordable. But it costs the seller a lot less money than it would if we just did a price reduction of $15,000 to get more buyers through the door.
Right.
So it's a really big win-win for both the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, and what I do want to mention on the temporary buy down is, because it is a true subsidy of the payment, there's this pool of money that sits there and the buyer gets to keep it. So if my expert is right, and within the next 12 months we see a drop in rates, we're going to refinance everybody, is basically what's going to happen. And you don't lose that money on a temporary buy down. On a permanent buy down, you have essentially it was spent. All right, so the last thing I was going to talk about is, if any of you out there are sitting there and you own a home and you'd really like to buy another home, but you don't want to do it or can't do it until you identify the home that you want, there's a great program. We have about 5 different programs where you can do buy now before selling. And this can be a situation where someone, all their equity is currently trapped in their current home. They typically would need to sell in order to get their down payment, or they feel like they can't afford 2 payments at the same time, or they don't qualify for 2 payments at the same time. So this is a strategy that can help a seller have less pressure on them they might be able to fix up their house, get top dollar when they do sell. They know that they're going, like the one that most recently we've been doing, they wanted a condo in Redondo. That was it. They were not going to put their house on the market until they had secured the property they wanted for their retirement. And so we were able to do a bridge transaction where they were able to buy the condo, able to then fix up their current residence and put it on the market to get top dollar. So we call it buy now before selling. And this is an example of the bridge. And again, we have about 5 different ones. Buy now, a $600,000 house. It was going to cost $40,000 to do a 5% down loan. They didn't have $40,000. So we went over to the bridge. You can see on the end over there, we got a $50,000 bridge. And that's an interest-only payment. And you can see at the bottom what the cost is. It was about $820 to get that bridge. The monthly payment is $343. But for these people, it was absolutely critical that they be able to buy before selling. It was, kids have to be in a certain school district. And so you can see, once their home sold though, they didn't have to refi to get the smaller payment. We do a recast and they put the net proceeds of $200,000. We rewrite the note and the deed of trust and they have a loan of $370. And so their payment is in budget and what they wanted. The cost is $300. It's a great option for people. So if you're in that situation or know someone in that situation, there are options. And I think that last but not least, you know, if anyone wants to talk about those sorts of things or financing or anything like that, happy to do a consultation. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ellisa, and she's going to talk about our local market.
I am. And so, so this mic is louder for me. I think, can you guys hear me better on this one? A little. Okay. So, so Karen, can you just hit the next slide? We're going to talk about this. So these data pieces come from the Northwest MLS. The previous stuff came actually from Keller Williams just did their big family reunion. We had our national conference down in California, and those data sets came from the economists within Keller Williams. So we had talked a little bit about affordability nationally. Now this gets into the affordability index within Washington State. So you can see here, when we talk about 2017, 2018, when we're at 100%, at the 100 number, so that's where we want to be. And now you can see we have, so in 2017, we were still in that buyer's market after recovering from the crash. And it was very easy for a buyer to buy a home. And now we have come down after 2020, and it has become much more difficult for that first-time home buyer to purchase a home. And so we're just moving on to the next slide. And so, so as we, so with months of supply, so the Northwest MLS had a record year in 2021 with all of the home sales, with COVID happening, all those people moving around. We sold more homes than we have ever sold before. It was a banner year for real estate agents. People were just jumping out of the woodwork. Sell my home. I want to buy a home. And now things have started to slow down for real estate agents, and that's fine. It's taking a little bit more. And now we have, so now we're moving up to 1.4 months of supply versus the 0.63 months of supply at 2022 over 2021. As you can see, our numbers are just rising in inventory and new listings. We're having fewer listings, and then our listing price ratio has changed as well. And so it's just taking a little bit more to get homes sold, but we are still in a seller's market. And this is county to county. So if you can find the county that you're in, again, we can send you this. I know it's a little bit small to read, but
if you want these slides, just fill out your name on one of these, and we can get that over to you.
So we're in Pierce County right now. So we'll feature that one. So 2022 home prices were $551,000 on average. Now they've dropped down to an average in 2021. So just not a huge change, but we had a reduction of 9.65%. And so and overall we had an 8.14% change statewide, or Northwest MLS wide, I should say. The Northwest MLS does cover most of Washington State. And then again, January, we had fewer listings last year than we had the year before. Or I guess, no, this year than we had the year before. And we are still seeing that change in the market. Also, we're seeing it with pending sales. Again, fewer listings, condos, residentials. Also, we're seeing that in multifamily as well. So because of that, we're seeing an increase in inventory, but still staying in that buyer's market. We are in that still in that less than 3 months worth of inventory, well below the 4 months of inventory that it takes to get to a balanced market. So this is a home we sold. Kathy loves this photo. She put this slide deck together. She is our team owner. We renovated this home completely, and it was over in the Fauntleroy area of West Seattle. This is part of our concierge services program. And so as we move from the seller's market into a neutral market and a buyer's market, I've kind of talked about this a little bit. We get into a neutral market in that 4 to 6 months of inventory. We haven't been there in more than 10 years. That would be a huge shock to our sellers to get to that place. Also to our buyers. Buyers haven't even thought about what that would look like in negotiations, let alone being in a buyer's market where homes are sitting on the market for 6 months or more, kind of what that takes. Also what they have to give away to sell their homes, those kinds of pieces.
Well, and one thing I am going to mention, because it still is a seller's market, if you are a buyer, one of the things that you need to do to prepare is to, in my opinion, not only get pre-approved but pre-underwritten, because sellers want certainty, and if you're competing, you want to look the best that you can look to a seller, and so you should ask your lender about that. Get pre-underwritten.
And I will say, because of our supply and inventory issues, we are not at all predicting to even hit that neutral market. We just in the simple laws of supply and demand, there is no predictions for hitting even that neutral market. Every model we've seen is keeping us in a seller's market because we don't have enough units, enough houses built to supply for the households, for the number of families that need them. Builders stopped building after 2008 when they lost their shirts. They went bankrupt. They got very gun shy about building communities, about building developments. And so instead of building a whole, giant community, they're building smaller and smaller stacks of homes. So we're just not seeing the massive growth of housing that we need to keep up with demand.
Well, and one of the things, you have a question?
Well, does the demand shrink too if your qualified buyer pool can't afford these houses anymore with these interest rates? Like, where do we meet in the middle differently?
Yeah, so there are some grant programs that Karen can talk about. We have also the interest rate buy downs. Oh, and there are some pieces you meet with your agent and you talk about. So when we have that kind of heart to heart about how to get into a house. Like, what? And so sometimes people think that their first home is going to be this thing. And we have that consultation about what is that going to look like for you right now in this market. And how can we make a home work for you right now? Because the first piece is getting into a home. Being in the market is the first piece. Because once you're in the market, then you start to gain the equity that everybody else is getting. And once you're in the market, then we can help build you up so that you can get the house that you really want. But the first step is getting into the market. And maybe that's a home that you don't super love, but that works for you right now.
And then maybe use one of the strategies with the temporary buy down so that you are making a payment in the 4s and you are getting a payment that works for your budget. The other thing that, you know, and I would say that because the market is a little bit slower right now, that if you can qualify, now is a good time to buy. Now, we do predict that we are going to see interest rates, you know, like I said, dropping in the future. And with wage growth, you know, hopefully it will become more balanced, but we are going to struggle in Washington, in particularly Western Washington, a little bit because of that supply and demand.
Yep. And I know that sometimes people don't want to hear me say, like, get into the market first. And then, you know, we can make some adjustments, find a house that needs some work, find a house that needs some repair, needs carpet, maybe has ugly paint. But you can get some real benefits from that.
Find the ugly one. There are even renovation loan products.
Okay, so we talk about price comparable lists and not sold properties. So this is about pricing right. When you're listing your house, if you aren't priced right, sometimes they're like, clients say to me, well, I want to see if I can sell it at this price. And I have a house on the market right now that's like this. I recommended a price, and my client's like, well, I want to see if it'll sell for this. And it's their house. Ultimately, it's their house. And it's still on the market right now. And we've been inching down towards the price I recommended. But now buyers are like, well, what's wrong with it? Because it's been sitting on the market. And that's the thought people have, is what's wrong with it? Because it didn't sell right away. And so that's why pricing right in the moment is the better thing to do. Pricing for the market we have, not the market we had, is so important. And again, this is, you know, we have to meet the, you know, come together in the middle. And then, of course, it's about managing expectations. We do have hard conversations with clients, and we have them in a compassionate way. We know this is your home. Sorry. We've been talking a lot. We've been doing this for 9 days. Can you have my tea? Having those kind and compassionate conversations with clients is so important. This is their home. It's where they raise their kids, their families. It's where they put a lot of work into, and it's where their retirement investments are, all those things. Having those good quality conversations is so important. And so that's why we built a trusted team. And we built a trusted team with you. We have our inspectors, we have our contractors, we have our great quality lenders. We have all those people that can come around you. We have our stagers, our photographers. We have our amazing staff that really helps this process. Jackie's with us today. And Chloe's over at our booth right now as you walk in. So come and visit us. And then we prepare you to compete. We help you understand the market as it is and as it's changing, and help you through that process.
All right, so if anybody again wants those slides, just come and we can
there is
get
a little
your
bit
name.
more. If you hit the, sorry. So as you so this talks about the team that you would have. Again, house cleaners, landscapers, stagers, We do a lot of estate planning and probate work, so we also have our lawyers and those kinds of people that we can recommend for trusts and wills as well. And then storage and movers as well. We always recommend a seller's pre-inspection because one of the biggest things that can come up in the middle of a transaction, you think your home is so great and you put all this work and love into it, and then the buyer's inspector comes through and tears your house apart and has all of these things that you didn't even realize were an issue because you hadn't been able to get in that attic or down in that crawl space in a long time, or up on the roof. So or you didn't know what a termite infestation looked like. So we have our preferred inspectors that come out and look at a home. And then these are the top 10 suggestions for home updates, and then what they can bring you back in renovation. This comes from HGTV. We really work to recommend repairs that'll give you a 200% return on investment, or twice again return on investment when we recommend those pieces from our contractors. This comes through the Better Business Bureau. It's how to choose a contractor. So verifying the license and bonded, checking to make sure that they can do the work in a quality way, keeping track of all documents, getting all details in writing. It's important to be hiring quality contractors. I think there's amazing vendors here throughout the show. And again, some least cost home selling tips here. Some of those things, some of the elbow grease things, landscaping, paint, making sure things are cleaned up, lightened up. And of course, clean, declutter, and color. Nice, neutral, light colors. Always make a home look open. And so we hear some people say, well, I think I can do this myself. This seems like, I could do this. But one of the things that when you hire a real estate agent, you also get a level of safety that's hard to produce on your own. Because if you're a for sale by owner, strangers are going to be coming into your house. When you have an agent, we have a lockbox on your house that's only able to be accessed by other agents electronically. When we do open houses, we have 2 agents there. The people that are able to be seeing your house have to be financeable first. They're vetted by the agent that's opening the door. There are specific safety pieces that are put in place first before they're even allowed inside your house. And those are security measures. Also, agents have to be background checked and fingerprinted before they can get their super key or their Northwest MLS access. So those kind of security measures are so important. I just want to say thank you guys for coming to this our talk today. If you have any questions, we are over just near the entrance, and please stop by our booth. We'd love to see all of you and hear what your upcoming projects are.
Thank you very much.
Holding it all together.